Good morning, VC. It's Mazzy, and this is a new video, and this is probably going to be my least watched video because of the subject matter, which is too friggin' bad. Woke up this morning, and the second thing I did was turn on my iPad, and there was several notifications from YouTube postings that I'd gotten a few more uploads to my contest. I have a 500 to 600 subscribers contest that kind of coincides with the 50th anniversary of 1969. So seek that out. And I woke up, I couldn't believe it. I'm like 630 already, but thank you so much. But anyway, this is going to be about the Avant Garde. And this video was influenced by Robert. And Robert is over at Sounds Strange. Sounds Strange is his channel. I'll link it below because what I love about his videos, he's doing something completely different. I want to emphasize classical, although he's not just into classical, but his Irish dry sense of humor. Originally from Dublin, he now lives in Spain. And I was in Dublin once for a wedding 20 years ago. Actually, it was out in a place called Glendalough. But I'm going into another discussion which has nothing to do with this video, but because of him, the first question in my contest is share a record that everyone should own. And since a lot of his choices are classical, although he has jazz and rock and things, but a little more unusual, which is really kind of refreshing from all the crap that I show all the time and all of the, Blue Note, okay, we love Blue Note. Classic rock, I know we love classic rock. Do I need to see another fucking Fleetwood Mac album again? Or even Sgt. Pepper? I think he's not a big fan of Sgt. Pepper, or I think it's overblown. I think I saw that on one of his videos. But anyway, this has nothing to do with that. This is about the Avant Garde. Anyway, his choice for the album that everyone should have was this. Now, not this version, but it's Igor Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring. My version is a Deutsche Grammophon, Le Sacre des Printemps, which is the French word, so I can get all Frenchy on you this morning. And this video is about the Avant Garde, and that can mean so much. There can be so many different definitions of the Avant Garde because it's just that. So let me, to set the scene here and what I'm going to show, I'm going to read from Wikipedia, because Wikipedia knows everything, the definition of avant-garde. The avant-garde, which is French from the French word avant-garde, it's amazing how I'm so bilingual here. For the French, advance guard or vanguard, literally foreguard, are people or works that are experimental, radical, or unorthodox with respect to art, culture, or society. It may be characterized by non-traditional aesthetic innovation and initially unacceptable. It may offer a critique of the relationship between producer and consumer. The avant-garde pushes the boundaries of what is accepted as the norm or the status quo, primarily in the cultural realm. The avant-garde is considered by some to be a hallmark of modernism as distinct from postmodernism. Anyway, that's kind of an overview. I think we all know what avant-garde is, even if we can't, always put our finger on it. And I'm gonna show some music I have, and this could be anything. I'm wearing this Yoko Ono t-shirt, and I'm gonna show one related thing at the very end by Yoko, which I realize I put out of arm's length, so we'll have to get up towards the end here. Yoko Ono, I have a video earlier on, I just showcase all her records. I'm a big fan, and I know a lot of people, she's the witch they love to hate, and I'm quoting other people, but I love Yoko Ono. Yoko Ono came from the Fluxus movement as an artist, and the Fluxus movement was an early 60s modern art, minimalist movement, very conceptual art, which I'm a big fan of. Again, you can see where this is going already, and if it's not Fleetwood Mac rumors, I'm sorry, you can move on to to another channel. You can skip this one, but I think this is interesting, and it'll be a little educational. I don't know as much about a lot of the experts of this music, but I've been collecting a lot of this stuff. A lot of these were going to be on CD, only a few on vinyl, and it's really going to be all over the map. But anyway, Igor Stravinsky, The Rite of Spring, was written kind of as an opera, and it was pretty out there at the time. I think it scared a lot of people, and as Robert mentioned, I think it actually literally caused riots when it was first performed. But he says, get The Rite of Spring, and he's so right on about that. Any version, this is not the version that he had, but this is a Deutsche Grammophon, a German, an actual German copy, a little kind of messed up here. Hey, $2.99, okay? So you can get cheap versions. You know, CDs are a great way to go classical because you get the entire pieces without interruption, like you might on turning over an album. But anyway, love this. That's what's playing in the background. So it'll come up and go down as need be. I'm gonna just go all over and just start sharing things. Let me share some records first. One of the, in the 60s and 70s, there was a composer that was a very big part of the Avant Garde movement, Robert Crumb. And Robert Crumb was a minimalist. He did a lot of amplified piano work, orchestrated work, composing, but someone who is very atonal too. Atonal is a part of a lot of this. It's not exclusive, obviously, and it's not a defining description of avant-garde music, but George Crumb. So whenever I see minimalist composers like this, electronic music, which I'm going to get into a little bit, I pick their records up, or even their CDs, because the CDs are the things to put on sort of an ethereal as a background plate, which I think is pretty amazing. So that's on Columbia Records, Columbia Masterworks. Another important composer of the 20th century, Harry Partch. I got this because when I worked in record stores, I saw this box and it intrigued me, and I did some research about it. In college, I'm gonna turn Stravinsky down a slight bit. You get your chiaroscuro ups and downs, highs and lows, blacks and whites of this type of music where it gets really soft and then it explodes with a fit of rage and epic proportions. I sound like I know what I'm talking about, don't I? Harry Partch, another atonal musician. What's great about Harry Partch, or is interesting about him, is that all the instruments in his compositions he invented. So these are not played on traditional instruments of the orchestra. This is Columbia, his most famous piece, Delusion of the Fury, which came out, I believe, in the late 60s. I don't know here. But this is a quote from Harry Partch. "I have never been involved in the development of modern or avant-garde music." Interesting. "I have always been a loner. There is nothing like my work in the modern world that I know of." So, is he just escaping or disavowing the word of avant-garde? We use that word, and I'm using that word to throw it over a lot of these artists, describing a lot of these artists. Kind of an easy out. It's putting these records that I'm showing you today together that are out there, that have no connection. I can't do like my top folk music, my top, symphonies. It's beyond that. And again, all these are not specifically avant-garde maybe, but today they are, since I'm showing them. But Harry Partch, this is a double album, I believe. And what's great about it as well, I remember getting this record when I sold records, and it's got a little booklet overview, and it shows the instruments that he actually designed and built. A lot of percussive, a lot of keyboards, chime type things. you know, based on other instruments, but he literally created these himself. So those of you who are a little bit on the adventurous side and may appreciate this or want to dip their toe in, this is one that's rather interesting. And you know, every once in a while I see this 2-record set in the bargain bins. So if you're the adventurous type, Harry Parch, pick it up. Now, I only am showing this. Ken Nordine is not an avant-garde composer, but he's the innovator and creator of word jazz. He died last year. He really mixed up, you know his voice from Levi's commercials, from him working in the 80s and 90s with Jerry Garcia, and I did, I think, one record on Grateful Dead Records, I believe, and David Grishman. He did a whole series called Word Jazz that were on Blue Thumb Records and Philips Records. This is called Colors, and I believe this is the same Colors. He did a lot of commercial and voiceover work, and as I said, you know his voice, but the Colors series, I think it was Benjamin Moore Paints that hired him for a series of radio spots back in the, I'd say, the early 60s, where he would do something like, lavender needs delicate handling, maroon makes it. Of course, my voice has nothing like, sounds nothing like Ken Nordine, but his word jazz series and this series of Colors, it's just one record I'm going to showcase right now. I'm putting it in here, not really avant-garde, but again, I'm throwing a lot of stuff in that's music and records that are really uncategorized. That wasn't even a proper phrase. Maslow says it all. Okay. Rachel's. My friend Amanda from Pensacola, through Austin, through San Francisco, through Seattle, through, where's she now? She was in Tulsa. Turned me on to Rachel's. Rachel Grimes is a piano player, modern, contemporary piano player, makes records now. The Rachels, I don't think they necessarily still exist in this form. This record came out in 1996, and with this is a beautiful record. If you see the LP, grab it, or the CD. It's a trio of Rachel Grimes on piano, Christian Fredrickson on viola, and Wendy Doyle on cello, and it's called Music for Egon Schiele. Egon Schiele is a infamous or famous artist. So it's sort of influenced by the art of Egon Schiele. Schiele. I'm gonna get like my Princeton, I get my Steve Carlson pronunciation notebook out when I'm doing these. But a gorgeous record, a beautiful record. It's more in the classical vein, minimal classical music. Great ambient music. This is some of the paintings of Egon Schiele. But again, wonderful, wonderful record. Throwing it in with all the others here. Okay, I'm gonna just showcase, I have a lot of CDs. During the CD era is when I really built up my modernist collection, my 20th century composers, 20th century performers, a lot of labels like Nonsuch, ECM. Well, Nonsuch actually was a big one with the Kronos Quartet and John Adams and Steve Reich and others. But probably one of the most famous minimalist, modern, avant-garde composers of the 20th century is John Cage. John Cage passed away, I think, in the 90s, as I recall. His most famous piece is 433. And what it is, I mean, famous in terms of infamous, is 433. So we're starting this over again just because I should probably turn it over, but I'm just gonna repeat it. Repeat, escuchen and repite. Okay, John Cage, 433. 4 minutes, 33 seconds of silence. Is that a joke? Is that funny? Funny like a clown? You think I'm funny like a clown? Yoko Ono does that too. The Fluxus movement, the minimalist, Avant Garde, you know. People who hear about that and read about that think it's friggin' crazy. It's like conceptual artists, minimalists. I love that kind of stuff. It reminds me, one of my favorite things is about when I turned 50, I took my family, we went to London. Probably my second or third favorite city. Okay, that's a good trivia question. What are Mazzy's 3 favorite cities in the world? You can write it below. I don't think I've ever said it, but you can just guess if you want. San Francisco's #1, but there's 2 others. Okay, so I was in London, and I gave that one away. And we went to the Tate Modern Museum, and I was doing one of the I think I told this story in another video, but it was about modernism and minimalists and artwork. And they described a piece of art, and unfortunately I don't remember the artist, but some museum purchased it for something like $1.5 million. And what the art is basically nothing. It doesn't exist. It's a concept. A museum bought a concept of a minimalist, nothing, non-existing piece of art for $1.5 million. I love it. I love the outrage. I love when art just really, really makes people crazy. Not even crazy, but kind of upsets them. Like, you know, I could have done that. I could have been Jackson Pollock and slapped the paint. Well, you couldn't. You didn't. I could have done that. Anyway, I digress, as I usually do. But that has a lot to do with this whole conversation of avant-garde, minimalism, the Fluxus movement, conceptual art, and John Cage. This happens to be Seasons' new ECM series. I think during the 90s, ECM, like many labels, had separate lines. Basically, the new series was modernist, minimalist music, unlike the ECM jazz records we all know from the 70s and 80s. But this is 74, the Seasons, Concerto for Prepared Piano, and so on and so on and so on. I just pulled this one because the cover is kind of nice. I have about a dozen John Cage records, and what's great about these two, I load them on my hard drive, and sometimes if I'm in the mood, I'll have a John Cage evening, even if 4 minutes and 33 seconds is silent. I've spoken here about Philip Glass, the composer, and I've said my modernist knock-knock joke, which I won't repeat here. It's somewhere on a video. Philip Glass, this is works of Philip Glass on film, and some of the beautiful soundtracks that I have separately and are included here are several he did. 2 in particular, Koyaanisqatsi and Powhatan, which are based on American Indian words, life out of balance. And they're films that are basically, I want to say stop motion, but it's not Gumby. It's basically, what do you call it? It's things from urban and suburban and rivers and lakes and streams and rockets taking off and slow motion and time-lapse photography. That's what I was trying to get to. With his composition with vocals, which is just stunning. Koyaanisqatsi is stunning. See the movie, rent it if you want to get a little mind-blowing trip, and it's great. Goes from minimal to over the top. But this is great because it's an overview of, again, he also did Dracula, which was a piece of music he composed for the original. It was a silent version. Well, the Warner Brothers Dracula with Bela Lugosi, there was several live performances of that shown silent with this composition played by the Kronos Quartet. And there is a separate soundtrack of the Kronos Quartet playing Dracula. But I saw it during a screening in San Francisco soon after it came out. It was pretty amazing. Also, selections from La Bête et la Bête, Mundi, Kundan, Mishima. Mishima is a favorite movie of mine by Philip Kaufman. Interesting movie of the life of Mishima, this Japanese artist who committed hara-kiri. Mishima, check out Mishima. Very artsy film with a Philip Glass soundtrack. What more can I say about it? It's gorgeous. And what happened throughout the film, it tells a little bit of his life story through his written stories. And they recreate stories throughout it. So it's almost like an anthology of cinema. But if you like foreign cinema, actually it's not really foreign cinema, but a foreign topic, Phil Kaufman made some very popular movies. He made The Right Stuff. Trying to think what else he made. But anyway, Mishima is a great film. Kundan, I believe, is that the one that Scorsese maybe directed? Not sure. The Secret Agent and not The Secret Agent Man, but that's a beautiful soundtrack. Again, most of these are on Non-Such Records, which became sort of a modernist, avant-garde, 20th century composers label throughout the late 80s into the 90s, and to this day, still. That's a part of their catalog. But anyway, Philip Glass, Film Works. I showed a box set of Kronos Quartet in my box set videos. This, if you don't have any Kronos, this is called Kronos Quartet Release, 1985 to 95, a 10-year overview, a double record set. This has Kronos. They're a San Francisco-based modernist 20th century quartet that performs very wide variety of music, not only from people like David Byrne, from Laurie Anderson, but mostly classical composers, a lot of composers that write specifically for them, plus they do other projects, and their work is amazing. But this would be a great overview on Non-Such to get. So it's released and unreleased, but it has music from Astor Piazzolla, who was a great tango accordion player, or what do they call the tango version of the accordion? Piazzolla, anyway, Astor Piazzolla, Ben Jonson, Steve Reich, Henry Gorecki, modernist composer, Terry Riley also, George Crumb, Arvo Part, which I'm going to show here, Philip Glass, Samuel Barber, Raymond Johnson, and they actually do a version of Jimi Hendrix' Purple Haze just to round it out and end it out, to give you pop people something to really grab onto. But Kronos Quartet, highly recommended. This is probably a good initial overview. I gotta stop doing this, I'm realizing. It's like avant-garde zoom lens photography without a zoom. Stay still, Mazzy. Kronos Quartet. Okay, I'll go through these other ones. Arvo Part is one of the composers that I mentioned. Again, Arvo Part is from Estonia, modernist, minimalist composer, does a lot of vocals, a lot of choral arrangements on his music in many ways. Someone who's very, very known in the field. These are on ECM. Oh, actually, this one's ECM. This is BMG collection, Arvo Part, Te Deum. But you need some Arvo Part. Maybe going with the Kronos, it gives you a little taste of who you might like and might not like. So again, you know, those are the kind of things, because these records are very out there in some cases. Some are more melodic than others. Some are very minimal. Some will start out slow and quiet and then just get crazy wild and drive you crazy. You know, you could compare it to like the Captain Beefheart of classical, but that can be jarring. That could really drive people crazy. You know, there's bands in terms of the rock and roll where like Sonic Youth that was influenced by this music. Industrial music like Throbbing Gristle. I didn't bring those up because I didn't want to kind of push in the pop realm for the most part. Okay, two on Non-Such, which are two of my favorites. Steve Reich, electronic counterpoint, and some of you jazz people probably know Pat Metheny. He plays on this one. And it's got Steve Reich, different trains, and it's with the Kronos Quartet as well. So a lot of overlapping with this genre. I know Robert hates genre because in Ireland you can't say genre, right? It means something else, right, Robert? I do listen, I do pay attention to everybody's videos here. Another one, the Desert Music, Steve Reich, beautiful covers. Okay, a person you should know who really fuses things, fuses rock, jazz, classical, avant-garde is John Zorn. Now, I don't have any John Zorn on vinyl, and I'm dying to get this on vinyl. VC helped me. I saw a copy. It did come out on vinyl minimally, because this was probably, is this the 90s? Late 80s? 89, I think. First of all, this cover, you know how I like photography? This cover is by the infamous crime photographer, Weegee. You should look up Weegee, W-E-E-G-E-E. He did a lot of crime photos. Anyway, it's called Naked City. I want this on vinyl badly. I did see a copy at my local. They have a copy at my local, a sealed copy for $100. I'm very tempted, but I might wait and bring some trade-ins. That's the thing. When it's a record, it's $100 and you really want it. I think it's a good time that you bring your trade-in. So if you get $60 in credit, at least you're paying $40. Even though you're getting rid of those records, that gives you $60 credit. It kind of feels better, doesn't it? But not on the soft side. I did see him about 10 years ago, or so. He did a tour or a series. He did basically a week, 5 days, 5 shows, I believe, in San Francisco. And each night was a different theme, a different group of musicians, his compositions from jazz to rock to classical avant-garde. But John Zorn, another one of his called Spillane and Forbidden Fruit. One is Forbidden Fruit, Variations for Voice, String Quartet, and Turntables. So again, he's pretty out there at times, but very modern. I think his music's really exciting. It can be. This is a cool overview. John Zorn Filmworks, 1986 to 1990. I always love his cover artwork. It's kind of that noir, especially that Weegee cover. But here you go, John Zorn. So, anyway, something worth checking out as well, John Zorn. Okay, a couple other things that relate. First of all, this is not avant-garde, but this is something I'm throwing in this avant-garde because I'm Mazzy and I can do whatever I want, and this is America. For now, we can almost do whatever we almost want to do, unless they tell us we can't. So, Carl Stalling. If you don't know the name of Carl Stalling, I guarantee you that almost everyone here has heard his music. Carl Stalling was a composer on all of the Warner Brothers cartoons, all the Bugs Bunny cartoons, or Roadrunner cartoons. And these are 2 volumes that came out in the late 80s, I believe, of Carl Stalling music. So it has stops and starts and long and short and, you know, of Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny cartoons, Warner Brothers Daffy Duck cartoons, Tweety, Droopy Dog, Pepe Le Pew. You know them all, right? You want to hear this, don't you? Let me see if we can get away with this now. What else do you have to do, huh? Hope you're having a drink or a coffee or whatever. But the reason I bring up Carl Stalling, first of all, it's not avant-garde in the purest sense, but it fits in that all-encompassing, what the fuck do I put this record? Classical. It's actually soundtracks. Actually, B-side records, Beth at B-side. If you don't have any Carl Stalling, you need to get Carl Stalling. There is a huge multi-box of like several, $400. I'm gonna try to find that because it's probably cheaper now. It's something like 10 records of Warner Brothers, this kind of music, Carl Stalling music. Let's see if this is gonna work here. I tall putty cat. Okay, well this leads me into the, almost to the end. Almost to the end, Carl Stalling, because Raymond Scott, I mentioned Raymond Scott in one of my, I think my contest video or one of my videos, because one of his most famous pieces he did was used in cartoons like Ren and Stimpy. But Raymond Scott did a fusion of jazz, but also was very, very early on into electronic music. Was influenced Moog, who invented the Moog synthesizer, and they collaborated on some pieces. I feel like I need to get hit over the head with a 2-ton anvil. That would be a great, I don't do special effects, but that would be how to end this video. You get the gist, Carl Stalling, right? All those Warner Brothers cartoons. But not Carl Stalling, Raymond Scott had a sub-company called Manhattan Research, where he worked with electronic music, electronic items, ring modulators, all this kind of, in fact, there's several, I'm blanking out now, a couple of VCs I watched that are really into the avant-garde and electronic music, so they probably know a lot more about Raymond Scott and this type of music than I do. But I was really into, this is where the CD world again really kind of came through. I'm gonna end this mini section, or most of it until one more piece after this, Om. Again, this is a beautiful collection. It's early gurus of electronic music, 1948 to 1980. Beautiful multi-disc set, 3 CDs. It's got people like Clara Rockmore, Oscar Sala, Edgar Varese, and Varese, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but you know Varese, the reissue label is kind of named after him. Steve Reich, Raymond Scott, Morton Sabanik, David Tudor, Terry Riley. Terry Riley's someone who's really important I didn't mention. I don't have any of his specific things, although I have his music by the Kronos Quartet. Klaus Schultz, so you know, I mean, Brian Eno, you know you can get into the whole electronic thing and groups like Can and, you know, the German electronic performers, which I don't really have a lot or don't know a lot about. But this book that comes with the record is just really kind of stupendous as well. You know, a man in a tie with a Moog synthesizer, a bank of computers is like so 50s. The early gurus of electronic music, Om. And one more, and I'll close it out just to showcase something. And I showed this briefly in my Yoko one, but I didn't really talk about it. Yoko Kim Thurston. Yoko Kim Thurston. Yoko Kim Thurston. If you say it fast enough, I don't know. Yoko Kim Thurston. Number 152 out of 600. Signed by Yoko Kim Thurston. You know Kim Thurston, Thurston Moore and Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth, and Yoko Ono. Did an album together, which is very challenging. I think Pitchfork gave it 5 out of 10. Modernist, minimalist, thrashing, very Sonic Youth meets. It's what you would expect Sonic Youth and Yoko Ono to do together. 3 LPs. I mean, this would have been one for me to show in my contest for artwork. So again, minimalist, modernist, industrial in a way. It just fits in the avant garde thing. So Mazzy's gonna close out, and I don't know if I'll do any more of these because I don't know how much people are interested in it. But this kind of gives it an overview of my personal collection. It's not a definitive overview of avant-garde or modernist or minimalist classical, jazz or rock or industrial music, but it's music that I've enjoyed and liked and get into, and it kind of just jumped into my, I was inspired again by that morning video that Robert posted at my contest. So again, if you haven't posted the contest, this is now August 15th or so, 2019. So again, if it's way in the future, forget it, just enjoy it for what it is. So Mazzy loves you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, BC.